and welcome to Cuppa with a Doula. I'm your host, Alicia. I'm an exercise physiologist. I am a doula. I am a mum to two girls, and I am doing this podcast to help mums and parents out there to feel like they're not alone, to spread awareness of things that happen when birthing. I create a platform for women to safely share their birthing and their parenting story, regardless of where they birth, whether it's a hospital birth, whether it's a planned C-section, whether it's birthing in a birth center or birthing at home with or without a midwife. It's all on Cuppa with a Doula. And every month I interview a professional in the field of pregnancy and birth. So far, I've had a student midwife, a birth photographer, a clinical nutritionist, a women's health physiotherapist, and Katherine Bell from the Birth Map. And now this week we have Sally Cusack from Maternity Choices Australia. And all these experts come and share their knowledge on the podcast in the aim of raising awareness to important things related to pregnancy, birth, and parenting. So thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, please consider leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because it really helps me to reach more people and to help more parents and more mums out there. So please consider leaving a review or even sharing it. Spread the word out there. Cuppa with a Doula. If you want to come on the podcast, there is a form in the show notes that you can use to get in touch with me, and then I will get back to you and we can record an episode together. Let's dive right in. In today's episode, I'm so happy to chat with the lovely and extremely funny Katherine. Katherine is a mum to two, but she takes us through her 3 pregnancies, and this episode is extremely special. One, because Katherine takes us through her first birth 14 years ago, where birthing education was a lot different back then, and there was a lot less access to information we now have. So definitely a little bit different to navigate the system. But then after the birth of her second child, Katherine felt that she wasn't done having children, but her husband definitely was. And even though she waited, she gave it time, her husband's stance didn't change. He was done having the 2 children. So Katherine started to dive into the world of surrogacy. And she takes us through the incredible journey she's been on, where she carried a baby girl for a couple who couldn't have children and who wanted to expand their family. It is an incredible story. It is so funny. And I've enjoyed every second of this story. I hope you do too. Without further ado, I will leave you to listen to Katherine's incredible 2 birth story and the home birth of Suro baby. Hi, Katherine. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
No, I'm very excited to have you here. Do you want to start by introducing yourself? So telling the listeners your name, where you're living, and who is in your family.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Katherine. I'm married to my husband, Tim. We have 2 children, a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. We live in Western Sydney in New South Wales.
Wow. So you're in the thick of teenagerhood, I guess?
Very much so.
Wow. That's very good. Well, I mean, not very good that you're in the thick of it, but it's a very interesting age. Yes. So, Katherine, did you always want to be a mum? Was it always on the cards for you?
Yes, absolutely. Ever since I was a little girl, I was always fascinated with babies and pregnant women. And if mum ever lost me at a party or anything, all she had to do was find the babies and that's where I would be. So, yeah, always wanted to be a mum.
That's very cute. Did you grow up with babies around you? Did you have younger siblings, or you just fascinated?
No, I'm the youngest, so I've got a sister that's 4 years older than me, and then always had younger cousins. Yeah, just younger cousins that we were always around and friends of family.
Yeah, right. Wow. That's amazing. And so when you met Tim, was he also wanting to be a dad? Did you have the conversation pretty early on or not really in your relationship?
We Yeah, we started dating when we were 16 and 17, so very, very young.
Wow.
And then, yeah, we got married 6 years into dating,
Yeah.
and it really didn't come up that, do we want kids? When do we want kids? We kind of just fell into it and it happened.
You fell into pregnancy.
Yeah,
I
pretty
see.
much.
I guess when you're both aligned, it's almost like you don't need to talk about it, maybe. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just a continuity of,
Mm,
what we are, maybe.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Wow, amazing. So for your daughter, did you plan to conceive her when you did?
Yes, I would say I consciously conceived. My husband was just in for the fun. But yeah, no, she was definitely wanted, definitely somewhat planned, and a delight as always.
Wow. So, okay, so you had planned to conceive. Had your husband planned to conceive? I mean, obviously, he knows how children are
Yes,
conceived. He's not
yes,
oblivious to that.
yeah. I think he was just enjoying married life and being in our own home, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. So, 14 years ago, what did you
yeah.
know about pregnancy? What did you know about, models of care? What was available around you at that time?
So probably around the time it was either you went public hospital and you
Yep.
just kind of got whatever midwife, whatever obstetrician was on the day, or you went to your private hospital and you had a private obstetrician.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
And, I thought I knew everything there was to know about birth. And I thought, yes, I've researched everything. So, of course, I went private obstetrician in a private hospital. And I had a fantastic prenatal lead up to pregnancy and birth and all of that. And yeah, he was great. I loved him as an obstetrician
Oh, wow, amazing. So you had researched those options before you were pregnant or early on in the pregnancy?
early on in the pregnancy.
Yeah, because I'm guessing you would have had to make a decision somewhat quick to get the obstetrician you wanted and not a third, fourth, fifth choice, I
That's
guess.
correct. Yes, yes, definitely.
Wow. So, in terms of your appointment, so you said you had really good antenatal care. Did it help you? Did you talk with your obstetrician about, how you wanted to birth? And did you get a bit of education, I guess, around pregnancy and birth as well?
Yeah, we definitely discussed a lot around the birth itself. He was very, or is very much pro natural vaginal birth and supporting women in those choices. We did do the hospital antenatal class, and my husband and I, it was just stock standard.
Yeah.
These are the stages of labor.
Hmm.
This is what your pain medications are. And these are your options. So I suggest you take it early enough. And that was the antenatal education that we got. And yeah, it just didn't feel quite enough. So my husband and I did the calm birth workshop.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that was obviously available back then, 14 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we actually did it with the founder of calm birth, and we did that
Uh-huh.
down in Barrel with him as well.
Wow. Oh, that's fascinating. So,
Yeah,
yeah, because I was going to ask, what, other education did you do? Because back then, there was obviously a lot less, social media information. There's a lot less probably website and so on. So it was probably more, I'm guessing, books,
yeah.
probably not really podcasts either, I'm guessing. No.
No, definitely not. A lot of word of mouth and, oh, listen to my horror story and this is what happened to me. And yeah, it was, and not a lot of our friends were having babies either.
Yeah.
So you didn't have someone that you could ring up and go, oh, I've heard this. Does that sound right to you? Or did you experience that? I didn't have any of that looking back now.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Back then, it was like you were really reliant on your circle having had children
Yeah.
and or not having had children and therefore not having a lot of information available for you. And then,
Mm.
yeah, you went probably to a library and you've got a few books here and there and or Canberth was available, which is absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah.
so calm birth obviously taught you all about, like, it went, I'm guessing, more in depth around stages of labor, what is actually happening during birth, the mechanics of it. Is that right?
Yeah. So definitely broke down the stages of labor and how our bodies react and the hormones and all of that. It was very much more educational for both my husband and I, which was really good.
Right. And so back then, did you make birth preferences, or what we would call birth preferences, or, birth mapping these days? Did you make any of that?
Oh, absolutely. I had it all. I was like, I'm all over this. It's on paper. It's going to happen. And yeah, so I handed this sheet of paper to my obstetrician and he went, okay, it's nice.
Was he
Um,
on board with it?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And, he was like, yep, I understand that you've written them down and that's great. And I'll read them with you. But again, birth is just so up in the air that there's no guarantee that I can make your wishes happen.
Okay. Fair. All
And I was
right.
like, okay, cool, no problems, that's fine.
Wow. So take us through the big day with your daughter, your very first birth. How did it start?
So it started over several weeks of me
Mm-hmm.
thinking, yep, this is it, this is labor.
Right.
And, saying to my husband, don't go to work, don't go to work. And, oh, no, it's nothing. And then,
I'm going to
okay,
work
you
now.
better come home, you better come home. So, yeah, this just, went on for ages. And now I
Oh,
know is prodromal labor and,
yep.
all of these things. But yeah, the day she was 3 days overdue and I
Mm-hmm.
was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be
Oh.
pregnant for ages. But yeah, she did eventually come out.
Mhm. Yes, as they do.
As they do. And yeah, about 11 o'clock in the morning, definitely started having contractions and,
Mhm,
feeling like, yep, these aren't slowing down. They're continuing to go. So, of course, off we go to the hospital and we're
mhm,
so excited. And they're just like, yeah, cool, no problems. You want to stay? Stay. Do what you do and labor away. So I was
mhm,
like, yep, no problem. So we just kind of labored and spent the night and most of the next morning. And yeah, the obstetrician came in the morning after
mhm.
20-ish hours
Wow.
and he did a vaginal check and he said, you're 4 centimeters. I was devastated. I
Oh.
was devastated. I was heartbroken. I was exhausted. I was
Mm,
just like, I can't do anything else. And a vaginal birth.
mhm,
So I'm going to recommend that you get the epidural so that you can rest and relax,
mhm,
and then we will have a vaginal birth. And I went, okay, cool. So got the epidural, and
mhm,
that was amazing. My husband ended up falling asleep on the couch. So I I rang my mum and said, Mum, Tim's asleep on the couch. I've got an epidural. Can you come up and keep me company? So my mum ended up coming and spending several hours with me until I just couldn't ignore the pressure
mhm.
down below anymore. And I was like, oh man, there is so much pressure. And of course, midwife comes in and goes, yeah, you've got head on view.
Cool. Sounds like
And
a
I'm like,
great
oh,
view.
yeah, cool, no problem. So of course, then it was snapping into action and calling the obstetrician and getting all organised. And my mum ducks into the bathroom, to quickly go, and then she was going to leave. And so she
Mhm,
comes out of the bathroom, and the midwife goes, right, Nana, you're up there at the head holding the vomit bag. Dad, you're down here holding a leg with me. Right, let's go. And so mum was like, looks like I'm staying. So she was able to stay while we delivered our daughter Rachel, and yeah, it was just unbelievable. Yeah, like, oh gosh, I can't even remember what time that was. It didn't feel like a long time that I was pushing. If I said
mm.
between half an hour to an hour of pushing, and yeah, she was born and straight up onto my chest and delayed cord clamping, and she latched on straight away, and yeah, it was wonderful.
So special that your mum was there, even though she didn't plan on being
Yeah.
there, but she was. Were you happy with that, to have that?
Definitely didn't plan it.
Oh.
We never really talked about it, and it didn't even cross my mind in the moment. It was just that's where she was, and that's obviously where she needed to be at the time. And I look back and I'm like, that is so special because it was my first daughter, and it
Yeah.
was her first granddaughter or first grandchild in a
Yeah,
sense. So
right.
yeah, and it was the first grandchild on both sides of the family, and yeah, it was really, really special.
Wow. Oh, that's so special. And you got, you got the birth you wanted.
Yeah.
So were you, I guess, weeks after, were you reflecting on this birth going, yeah, I had a pretty good experience? Or were there anything where you're like, oh, I wish I didn't do this or I did things differently, maybe?
Back then, probably I didn't feel like I'd lost anything
Hmm.
because I wasn't as educated as what I am now. Looking back then, I thought, great, I've had a vaginal birth. Like it was always the desire to have my baby vaginally, and
Hmm.
that's what I achieved, whether it was with an epidural or without. That really wasn't a massive stipulation for me.
Hmm.
My biggest thing was that I didn't want a cesarean.
Right. So back then, you've had a vaginal birth. Rachel is born and she's healthy and you're healthy. So,
Yeah,
yeah, outcomes achieved. Great.
absolutely, definitely.
How did you find parenthood back then? Again, there probably wasn't much education, help available, maybe?
No. Trying to find a mother's group to go to was incredibly hard.
Wow.
Facebook wasn't as established as what it is now, or
Hmm.
Instagram back then. So, we didn't have Facebook groups for babies
Wow.
born in summer or, these types of things. So I definitely found parenthood hard. It was
Mm.
hard. And yeah, it was a crying baby a lot of the time.
Gosh, it wasn't that long ago, but it's like it was just so different right back then. The
Mm,
lack of community is really what it is, right? The lack of being able to relate to other people and go, oh, your baby cries too, mine too. Yes, let's be friends. Let's talk about
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Wow. And so there's a 5-year age gap between your daughter and your son. So
Yeah.
did you plan to then expand the family or was it a happy surprise?
Definitely planned to expand the family sooner than 5 years.
Hmm.
But of course, life gets in the way,
Hmm.
health gets in the way, and it just never happened. It was never the right time.
Right.
And so that's what led us to, a 4 5 year gap between the kids. And
Hmm.
looking back, I'm actually glad I waited that long. I had really good quality time with Rachel and having time with her. And then she went off to kindy, and I was
Yeah.
able to have that quality time with my son when he was born. So that was really special too.
Yeah, that's right. That's almost like you've raised two like only child almost
Mm,
in that, yeah, as you said, you got this quality time through the day where your oldest is at kindy and then school, and then
yeah.
your youngest is well, too young for kindy, obviously, so staying with you or going into, a form of daycare or something. So yeah, that's really special. And Rachel would have been able to better understand that, mom's pregnant and I'm going to have a sibling. And
Yeah.
in as much as obviously she was 4-ish at that time,
Yeah.
but she'd have some understanding, I'm guessing.
Oh, definitely. She knew that there was a baby. She wanted to know the ins and outs of, right now, mum, what does that baby look like and how big is it? And
Uh
yeah,
huh.
she was just all over it, wanted to know everything. And yeah, she was just super, super excited.
Did you have the conversation about how babies are made back
No,
then?
thank goodness. Did not have to have that one just yet. That one came much, much later.
That's probably not a bad thing.
No, I know, definitely not.
Oh wow. That's fascinating that it's funny that she wanted to know what the baby looked like. I mean, I'm guessing it's because it's probably a bit abstract. It's like I need to visualize what this baby could look like. So did you have ultrasounds to show and so on?
Yes, yeah. So we did have ultrasounds. We went through the same private obstetrician and private hospital, had all the ultrasounds, and, was able to show her pictures of the baby, which she loved. And
Oh,
yeah,
right. And so now it's been 5 years since you've had Rachel. Have educational is there more resources out there for you to, help guide you in your pregnancy and your birth? Is there any more things available now?
I definitely think there was a lot more resources available. I think it was still very much lagging, but
Mhm,
definitely a lot more accessible resources, like a lot
mhm,
more online forums, start of Facebook groups, that type of thing. And just people that I knew that were having their first
mhm.
babies and I was having my second, or, different friend groups that we'd gotten involved with over the years. So yeah, that definitely changed as well.
Yeah, and I'm guessing also as Rachel entered kindy, you meeting mums who
Mm,
have obviously a child the same age around as Rachel, so therefore you've got this community that's starting to form because you're becoming a school mum, essentially, I guess
definitely.
is what we
Yeah.
call it. So you had the same obstetrician, the same hospital.
Yep.
What did you have the same birth preferences, the same desires to birth probably the same way, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the stipulations this time round was I don't want the epidural.
Mhm.
So that was I'd become slightly more educated, but I was definitely like, yeah, I want to do this. Like I can do this. So yeah, I did. I just said, yeah, I want to do the same birth plan, but I want to do it without an epidural this time. And he was like, yep, cool, great, no problems, let's do it.
Right, and I mean, you did 20 hours of labor without any form of pain relief, which is amazing.
Yeah.
20 hours is a really long time. And, I mean, obviously it probably wasn't the same intensity,
Mm,
but you're still in labor for 20 hours, which is exhausting to say
yeah.
the least. So, I mean, you've done a really good chunk of work. So
Mm.
obviously, and you knew what you felt like during this time, and you obviously had a desire to feel what was happening.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I felt more prepared mentally to tackle that again. Yeah. I kind of knew what I was in for and I was like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's usually a big difference between your first and second labor is you know what you're in for, even though labors can obviously look different and so on,
Mm,
but you kind of know that it's you can grasp a better concept of what labor is. I feel the first time it's really you can read about it, you can hear about it, but until you're in it,
mm.
it's all abstract. I feel.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And it's overwhelming and it, catches you off guard and, you can be prepared as much as what you can be, but until you have one of those massive, strong, intense surges or contractions, we don't know what it feels like as a first time mum.
No, that's right. That's right. Totally.
Yeah.
So, how did your son's labor begin then?
I was over being pregnant. I was done. I
Yes. Mhm.
I was done being pregnant. It was, yeah, coming into summer. I was
Oh,
hot. I was the size of a small house. I, I just wanted this baby out. And so, of course, can't even remember what appointment it was. I said to the obstetrician, I'm done. I want this baby out. And he goes, okay, come in tomorrow night and we'll induce you.
okay.
Okay, sure, no problems. Um, so I did.
So, sorry, you had no in your mind at this point. There is no. Oh, I can say no, or I can say, oh, actually, no, that's not exactly what I want.
Yeah,
Type thing.
and I don't think I really knew what I wanted. I
Mhm.
think I knew I was done being pregnant, and I knew I
Yeah.
wanted to have the baby. I just didn't think about how that connected at that point.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I just didn't realize that that was what it was going to be, and I was like, "Yep, sure, sign me up. Let's get this baby out."
So you agreed to an induction that you didn't know you could agree to, that you didn't
Yep,
know was an option. Okay.
yep,
And so
yep.
did you have an induction the next day?
I did. Yep. So we dropped my daughter off at my mum's, and
Mhm.
off we toddled into the hospital. And we had, well, I shouldn't say we, I had the Cervigel inserted, and
Mhm.
my husband kissed me goodnight and said, "All right, I'll see you in the morning when I get here." I went,
Oh,
"Oh, okay, sure, no problems, whatever." And
he's a good husband. He's going to get a good
oh,
night of sleep.
he's great. He's great. And yeah, so I think I woke at about, oh, that was put in at about 10:30 that night. And I woke up at about 5 a.m. with contractions,
Mm,
pretty
right.
strong surges. And so, of course, it was ring the husband and be like, you need to get here. Like, you've got a 40-minute drive. You need to get to the
Oh,
hospital.
oh yeah, right.
So, of course, yep, he's like, yeah, cool, no problems. we'd actually hired a student doula through the Australian Doula College to support us. That was quite late in the pregnancy, but we did have her. So, of course, contacted her and said, yep, things are starting. I think you need to head on over. So eventually they all turned up and, did our thing, laboured in the shower, birth wall, on the toilet, all of these different things. Got to the point where I said, okay, I think I want to jump in the birth pool now. And yep, cool, no problems. In you get. And I said, I feel like I've got the urge to push. Like I'm getting a lot of pressure. This is what's happening. So the midwife came in and checked me, and she said, oh, look, you're only about 7 centimetres. Definitely not time to push. I went, okay, cool, no problem. Little did I realise I was about to go through that stage of what we call transition. And so I had my calm birth affirmation track going, and there's beautiful music and meditation, and everyone's going, oh, you're doing amazing, this is wonderful. I remember standing bolt upright in the bath saying, turn that music off. She does not know what she's talking about. I'm done with this. I'm coming back tomorrow.
Right. Okay, off you go, Katherine.
Yep.
See you.
Yep. And everyone's like, no. And I said, well, if I have to do this, get me an epidural. So, of course, the doula, my husband, and the midwife that were all in the room went, okay. And next minute, in walks an anaesthetist with my epidural. And so I had that put in, and about an hour and a half later, my son was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hindsight's a wonderful thing, that if I'd realised that's transition, I probably would have gone, oh, okay, yeah, cool, I can do this. Like, I'm close. It's not going to be long. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, the anaesthetist was waiting at the door for that, I want the epidural.
Is it a classic private hospital thing where the anaesthetist is literally like just down the corridor having a tea going, oh, does anyone need me? Oh, yes, I'm coming.
I heard my name. My ears are burning.
I heard the word epidural. I'm coming.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's either they're waiting at the door or you can't find them. So
classic. Absolute classic there.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really interesting because so you had a doula, which, well, I mean, you're a doula yourself now, but
I am, yeah.
it's like and I mean, she was a student doula as well. So obviously lack of experience probably, but usually with a doula, she would have known your birth preferences, that you did not want the epidural, you wanted to really hold off as much as possible. And then the first mention of it, everyone goes, okay. It's like, oh, okay.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Right. Oh, wow. But I mean, again, how do you reflect on this birth? Are you a bit disappointed that like you got the epidural at a stage where you could have, your son could or couldn't have been born, in the next hour and a half, who knows, right? How do you reflect on this?
Back then I was like, oh, I was so close. Oh, well, doesn't matter. I still had a vaginal birth and, all is safe and well. That's how I thought about it back then.
I feel like back then, that was the narrative. It was like, as long as you've had your vaginal birth and you're well and baby's well, everything's fine. Yeah. And I feel like back then, any sort of potential trauma or potential, I guess, disappointment associated with birth was... It was non-existent. It was like, well, no, you just had what you wanted. You had, your vaginal birth. Your son's fine. Why would you be disappointed?
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah.
Right. So your son's born. You've had your 2 vaginal births. Yep. How is this family unit of yours? Are you feeling like you're complete, or is something missing to this family unit?
For my husband, the day that our son was born, he was done. He was very much, nope, no more babies. I'm done. I need a good night's sleep. I'm done with all of that. I think for me, I always thought I would have a big family, like 3, 4 kids. And that was sort of still in the back of my mind at, sort of that 2 years, 3 years post our son being born. And, I broached the subject with my husband and said, oh, if we wanted to, it would be sort of around now-ish. And he's like, no, I'm done. Like, no, if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm actually looking into having a vasectomy. And I was like, oh, you are really serious. And so we had to have that talk of saying, well, I get that you're ready to say you're done and you're not ready for more, like you don't want to have any more kids, but I'm not ready to say a definite I'm done. So can you please hold off on that until we make a definitive decision as a team and say, yeah, our family's complete, go ahead and do it. And he was like, yeah, cool, I can do that. That's fine. So that was a really big moment to kind of realize that he was done, but I wasn't necessarily finished with our family. And then, I think it was about 2018. And I was like, right, this is getting a bit further in the chain now. Like, if we want to have another baby, we have to do it now type thing. And he was still a definite not happening. So I was like, well, can't exactly have a baby on my own. can't really, deceive him and be like, oh, whoops, we had a baby. You can't do that. So that was when I'd sort of delved into the world of surrogacy and thought, I'm still relatively young and healthy and, all my bits and still working. So why not help someone who needs a bit of help? So I flew myself into the surrogacy world.
That's incredible. So your husband's a definite I'm finished, my family's complete. And were you a definite yes, or were you I'm not sure if I want more kids?
I'm not sure if I want more kids, but I want to leave that door open.
Right,
Yeah.
I see. And so when you dived into surrogacy, obviously you're seeking to help someone else, to help intended parents to bring a child into this world. But obviously, all you're getting, all you're getting is a pregnancy. You're obviously not expanding the family. So that was something that you were happy with?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to look into that, and I didn't want to be just a renter womb that, I carried a baby, I delivered a baby, and I handed the baby over, and I never saw them again.
Yeah.
That was what I wanted. I wanted to have that connection with the family, that connection with the baby, and sort of on the verge of, you could almost say, having a baby without the responsibility as such. It was another way of growing our family, of gaining a whole nother one.
Yeah, that's a way of putting it, isn't it? Like, it's because, as you said, and I'm guessing you got this relationship now with Surro Baby, I'm guessing is how he or she's called. Wow. So what did you know about surrogacy back then? Did you know that was a thing? Obviously, you found out at some point that was a thing.
Yeah. So, of course, I only ever knew about surrogacy overseas, where women would get paid to carry babies, and, it was a clear-cut transaction, and that was what happened. And then I found out about Australian surrogacy, which is completely different, and it's what we call altruistic surrogacy. So there's no commercial component at all. We're not paid for our service as such. But yeah, it's based on relationships and counselling and bonding and all of these different connections that you make with your intended parents and surrogate. And that's what makes the basis of altruistic surrogacy.
That's really interesting because, as you said, there's surrogacy is bigger in overseas countries like, the US and Canada, for example. And yes, usually there is some form of potentially, money involved in some states in the US and some parts of Canada. But yeah, in Australia, you cannot be paid to be a surrogate. So you're doing it out of basically the kindness of your heart, kindness of your womb, really, because we know that pregnancy is obviously really taxing on your body, but anything can happen, obviously. And this is obviously, I'm guessing that would have been not just you diving into it and going to Tim and going, oh, I'm going to be a surrogate. Obviously, it's a family decision, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of how it started.
I love it. You're just so like, you're just a go-getter. You're like, yeah, I'm going to be a surrogate now, okay?
Yeah, literally. I came home and I said to Tim, I said, so I've kind of been doing some research. And he's like, oh dear, what now?
Oh, gosh.
And I was like, what do you think about being a surrogate? He's like, no.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a great conversation, wasn't it?
I was like, "Oh, why? What are you talking about?" And of course, this started this whole big heated argument. And yeah, then the rest of probably 2018 was me doing research and popping little ideas into Tim's head saying, "Oh, did you know that blah, 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 blah in surrogacy?" And he's like, "No, I didn't know that. That's really cool." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, cool. Okay." So I'd find out another little bit of information and then I'd be like, "Oh, Tim, did you know?" And just kind of slowly fed him information as he was willing to accept it. And eventually he came around and was like, "All right, tell me what you found out, talk to me about it, and we'll discuss and go from there." So it was really cool to kind of sit down and go, "Well, this is all of the information I found and this is how it works." And, it was really cool to sit down and do that.
And you did so well in your approach because you initially you saw that Tim just he wasn't ready to receive this kind of information, and then as you said, you just drip fed him little facts, and then he came around. And I think he needed time. It's probably men don't, I guess, understand this pregnancy journey and the relationship that you obviously get with your body, with yourself. The whole everything that's involved, I think, in pregnancy and birth, they obviously men don't understand because
Mm.
they're not living it. It's a different experience for them, obviously. So yeah, it's fascinating that. So he took what, about a year ish to
Yeah,
come around.
about a year and a half to kind of
Yeah.
come around and, go from there. Yeah.
Did you know anyone who was a surrogate?
No, I hadn't. No,
Right.
no, I hadn't even known of any egg donors or, yeah, never met anybody in my life.
Wow. So you went on the internet and you just typed surrogate Australia. Is that how
Yeah.
it starts?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I typed up Surrogacy Australia,
Mhm.
and I came across. She's a lawyer down in Melbourne, Adelaide,
Mhm.
somewhere down there. Sarah Jefford, and she is an amazing. She was a surrogate herself, and she is just an amazing voice, and she's just a tornado of a woman that's just taking the surrogacy world by storm and making changes. And
Wow.
yeah, she's just incredible. So she's got a website, and she has a surrogacy handbook, and there's just so much information.
You told me about her, so actually I googled her to see, and yes, she's written a book and she's
Yep.
extremely involved in the surrogacy world. So when you found her, sorry, let me take a step back. So surrogacy in Australia is obviously legal, but you
Yep.
cannot be paid for it as a surrogate. But what legally, how does it go, from the time that you decide that you want to be a surrogate to you actually becoming one? What steps, happen?
Yeah, definitely. So once you have your intended parents that you are going to surrogate for, you start a process of going through the IVF clinic. So, and that can be any IVF clinic that does
Mhm.
surrogacy, and you do counseling with their counselors. And so you do counseling with them, and then you start the process of finding a third party independent counselor that is surrogacy related, and you
Okay.
do 3 sessions. So there's 2 sessions, which is like myself and Tim, and
Mhm.
the intended parents would do 2 sessions, and then we do a session as a group together.
Mhm.
And they're very, very in depth. Very, yeah, they cover topics and situations that you would hope never ever happen, but they do need
Right.
to cover these things. And so you do those sessions. You then have to go through the legal side. So
Mhm.
you have to use a lawyer that is surrogacy equipped to create contract, basically saying that, yeah, I'm giving up rights to this baby that I've grown to
Mhm.
her legal parent or their legal parent,
Mhm.
and I want nothing in return. And
Mhm.
once you've done all of those steps, that goes to the surrogacy committee board. They sit down, they read all the documents, they assess all the documents, assess you as a group and a team,
Mhm.
and then decide whether or not to give you the tick of approval to go ahead with surrogacy and continue the rest of the process.
Wow, that's super involved. Like, like you summarized it really quickly. It's like, but it sounds really involved. So, okay, step one, is finding the intended parents. Is that right?
Correct.
How do you find intended parents?
So a lot of sometimes it could be just people, friends, family
True.
within your own nuclear family
Hmm.
that may need support. There's a Australian surrogacy community Facebook page that
Uh-huh.
I joined initially, and probably to the 2,000 intended parents that are on that page, there's probably about 200 surrogates there as well. So we're quite outweighed
Yeah.
in a sense. But yeah, that was my first port of call, was join the community, ask lots of questions, and yeah, just get involved.
Wow. So you join this community and you find out that like there's a lot of demand of,
Mm.
intended parents wanting to, you know, have a first child or have a second, third child,
Yeah.
but there is obviously not many surrogates. How do you decide who you're going to surrogate for?
It's so hard because of course you're reading all these, intro posts and updates and, stories and all of this, and your heart breaks for
Yeah.
every single one of them. For whatever reason they've had to come to look at surrogacy
Yeah.
is just heartbreaking, whether they've been
Mm.
born like that or they've had,
Yeah.
accidents or cancer or,
Mm.
just so many different options and
Yeah.
reasons why women need to come to surrogacy is just phenomenal. But
Mm.
it's hard. It is so hard. But
Yeah.
my biggest thing is making a connection with someone. So
Mhm.
just talk with everyone and, see how you vibe with someone and, arrange to catch up for coffee.
Mhm.
You're not committing anything.
Yeah.
You're not saying yes or no, I'm going to have a baby for you. You're literally just catching up for coffee and having a chat, or, jump on a Zoom call and just see how you feel chatting with someone and see if you make a connection.
Wow. That must be hard though, because, like, I mean, if, for example, if I think about the side of the intended parents, if you say, oh, yeah, let's meet for a coffee or, let's have a chat, they maybe can start getting invested and go, oh, wow, she could be our surrogate. She could be carrying our baby. And,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and
And
wow.
sometimes not showing their true selves, playing up board or
Yeah.
the involvement that they want to kind of get you over the line. Sometimes that does happen, and it shouldn't need to. It should just be, out of the goodness of our hearts that,
Yeah.
we choose you to have a baby, and that's where we go.
Yeah, right. So you wanted to be involved, or sorry, did you want to be involved in the child's life, or did
Yeah.
you want to have updates, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely wanted to be involved.
Hmm.
Definitely wanted update and be a part of their family for that child, and that type of thing. Yeah.
Wow. So you were going to be, I guess, some sort of like Auntie Catherine, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Sort of like that non-official auntie. There was no
Yeah.
expectation of being called Auntie Catherine or,
Yeah.
whatever. It was whatever baby wants to call me. But yeah, definitely an expectation of being involved in the family's life and the child's life.
And did you also want the child to, well, I mean, maybe that's not up to you only to, I guess, explain to this child how he or she came to be, and that, they obviously have mum and dad being the intended parents, but you were the one that carried him or her?
Yeah, so that was actually something that came up for our intended parents as well, that they wanted them to know how
Hmm.
they were born and how they were conceived and brought into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
Wow.
was very clear that both of us were like, yeah, cool, we totally understand, and yeah, we want the same thing for the child to know where they've come from.
Right. So when you met with these, the intended parents,
Yep.
obviously you vibed really well with them. What was it like? What was the first meeting like with them?
Nervous, of course. It was actually just me and the kids that met them. I think my
Yeah.
husband was working or he was sick, or for whatever reason he couldn't make the first initial catch up. So it was
Hmm.
just me and the kids, and we met at a park,
Hmm.
and it was mum and dad, so the intended parent,
Yep.
their first daughter that was born via surrogacy, and her mum. And so I
Right.
was kind of like, okay, this is your entire family that I'm meeting for the first time. What do I do if I don't like you? Like,
Hmm.
What do I do? What excuse have I got? How am I going to get out of this situation? And yeah, they arrived, and it was like we were long lost friends.
Oh,
We hugged, and the kids got on, and it was amazing. We chatted for hours, the kids played for hours, and the rest is history. We kind of never went back, and that's where it started.
wow. That just sounds magical.
It was.
Was were they the first or second or third intended parents you had met with?
They were the second intended parents that we'd met with.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. And so from this day, did you come home to Tim and say, "Yep, it's them"?
Yes and no. I was quietly optimistic. In
Mhm.
my heart, I was like, yeah, this is it. But I didn't want to sort of rub it in Tim's face and be like, I'm going to do this, and all of that. So I was like, they're lovely, they're kind, they're genuine. The kids got on well, we got on well, and yeah, it was really really lovely. Yeah,
That's amazing. So that was step one. You
yeah,
found the intended parents, and
yeah.
at some point, did you both say to the intended parents, "Yep, let's do it"? You're like, "Yep, I'm going to be a surrogate." Does this conversation happen, or do you just move on to the next step?
No, yeah, that's definitely a step that you take. So in the surrogacy world, we say that you surrogate. So basically, you
Yes.
date your intended parents, get to know them, and we don't rush into anything.
Hmm.
So we met them in the beginning of 2020, and
Oh,
of course, we all know what happened mid 2020.
yes.
It was the COVID lockdowns, and
Yeah.
that really threw a spanner in the works of catching up face to face and exploring different options and avenues and that type of thing. But lots of online conversations and text messaging and FaceTimes happened, which was really nice. And then yeah, we met up with just the parents. So I should say their names. Their names are Tisha and Ben. I feel really weird calling them intended parents.
Yeah.
It's Tisha and Ben.
Nice.
We caught up for dinner with Tisha and Ben, and yeah, we said we'd love to have a baby for you and help you grow your family. And yeah, about 6 months later, we started the journey of the process.
Wow. So in this process, you would be carrying Tisha's and Ben's baby. So they
Correct.
would be doing IVF, and you would be, I guess, your body would be prepared hormonally, and then you would receive their embryo. Is that right?
Yes. So Tisha and Ben already had embryos created. So yeah, we didn't have to worry about creating embryos and waiting for a quarantine process, all
Hmm.
of that. So yeah, once we did all of the required steps to get to the surrogacy board to then get the tick of approval, we had to wait for my cycle. So I
Hmm.
just had to wait for my cycle to start, contact the IVF clinic and say, yep, I've started a cycle. Let me know when you want me to come in. And they give you a date, and you start daily blood tests from, I think it's day 9 of your cycle, and that's done at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So they get the
Wow.
results by 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
And there's a few ultrasounds to measure the thickness of the uterine wall to make sure that it's thickening up nicely and everything. And then they basically say, yep, you've peaked your hormones, this one's plummeted, your lining's doing really well. This is your date for the embryo transfer.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, you kind of go, oh, okay, cool. This just got real.
It would. And so, a little side question, but it's quite related. And feel free to not answer if you do not want to. At this point, you're about to be inseminated
Yeah.
with someone else's embryo. I'm assuming you cannot have sexual intercourse with your own husband, at
Correct.
least unprotected.
Correct. They
Okay.
do. They do recommend that you abstain from sexual
Mhm.
intercourse until you have that positive pregnancy test. So yeah, that was always something that you kind of go, oh, hang on, no, gotta be careful. But yeah, as we know, there's lots of other options
Yeah,
that.
of course. No, of course.
But
That's
yes,
right.
it is recommended that you abstain from intercourse at least.
Yeah. Wow. So, what was the day of the transfer like? Obviously, you're then pregnant until proven otherwise. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I slept a wink the night before. I must look so haggard in photos because I reckon I was just absolutely knackered. But yeah, because you have to be there at like 7:30 in the morning for
Wow.
the embryo transfer, and they have a schedule. You're in. The embryo's taken out of the freezer and it's done. Like there's no, oh, give me 10 minutes. No, like
No.
there's no 10 minutes about it. Like, this embryo's thawed and it's got to be put in type thing. Yeah, that started the process of, becoming pregnant with another man's baby.
Wow. Were Tisha and Ben there at the transfer too?
Yeah. So my husband and Tisha and Ben were all there. It's actually quite a funny story. So
Go on, please.
so we all turn up to do the embryo transfer, and the IVF doctor, she was absolutely so lovely, so genuine, and she was just amazing. So the four of us and the IVF doctor all walk into this teeny tiny little ultrasound room ready to do the transfer. And so she's like, okay, yep, cool, does all the legal stuff of that's you, that's your name, that's your date of birth, yep. And she goes, all right, up you get. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And she goes, oh, we'll just go behind here and give you some privacy. And I thought, like, all of them were going to go behind the curtain so that I could, disrobe and get up on the bed and get myself organized. No, her and the embryologists go behind the curtain. And Tish and Ben and my husband are still sitting there going, come on, like, let's go. So this started the process of any time we were in a medical appointment regarding this baby, I had to take my pants off in front of Ben.
Oh,
I'm like, well, Ben, you're going to watch your baby be born, so
yeah.
welcome.
That's a really good point you're making because, well, obviously you're not intimate with, Tisha and Ben, obviously, but then obviously at the birth of their baby, you would be to a degree somewhat naked.
Yeah.
So how do you, I guess, like come to term with this, to be naked in front of two strangers, I guess?
I think I'm a pretty strong woman
Yeah.
side of things. So being naked in front of another woman doesn't necessarily worry me. Ben was always the gentleman and always said, oh, hang on, let me just turn around. And, he was always so lovely, gave me privacy when he could. But yeah, it was just funny. That was just the start of it.
That's something I didn't think about, obviously. And I mean, at the birth, you're obviously disrobed,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ben can give you privacy, but I mean, he also doesn't want to miss the birth of his child. But I guess at this point, like, he's and Tisha, for that matter, they're probably not looking at your body to look at your body.
Oh,
They're
gosh, no.
it's obviously the moment. It's there's nothing about like, ooh, Catherine's naked,
Yeah.
obviously. But
Of course.
it can be difficult for you. I mean, you said you're a strong woman, but if you, for example, if for some people they like a level of privacy that's that can be a bit confronting, maybe the
Oh,
first
of
few
course.
times.
Oh, of course. And of course, like if I'd turned around and said, oh, look, could you just step out of the room?
Yeah,
Without a doubt, they would have.
yeah,
And,
of course.
I just didn't even cross my mind. I was just like, well, if this works 9 months from now, we're all
Yeah.
going to be here in the same situation. So let's go.
Wow. So, do you, before you get pregnant or after you get pregnant, do you talk about the type of birth? At what point does this conversation come up?
This conversation definitely comes up a lot in your pre-counselling. So all of the
Mm-hmm.
counselling that you do way before you even get approved for surrogacy, this definitely comes up in all of that counselling because I'm the one that's pregnant. I have the autonomy of my own body and
Okay.
it's my choice how I choose to birth and go from there. So definitely big conversations around birth and how I want to birth compared to how they think they
Mm-hmm.
may like to experience birth. I was very, very grateful with Tish and Ben that they were open to absolutely anything that I mentioned. If I said, "Yep, I want a planned Caesar," they would have gone, "No problem." If I said, "Yep, I want to do the private hospital epidural booked induction," they would have gone, yep, totally, no problems, that type of thing. So it was definitely a big conversation that came up for us.
That actually answered my next question, which was who decides, I guess, the type of birth? Because as you said, it is your body who's going through this pregnancy. So I was going to ask, well, who, I guess, decides, and is it a joint decision as well of, what Tish and Ben want? But as you said, it's your decision, and the intended parents, I guess, have to support it in a sense. And I mean, it's obviously not for you. It was an easy conversation, I guess, because Tisha and Ben were really open. But I guess for maybe other couples, it might be a let's maybe meet halfway. Maybe, I'm not sure. Making assumptions.
And sometimes, like, we were very lucky. We're a very close couple. Like, I'm in Western Sydney, New South Wales. They're about an hour and a half down the main highway. So they're not far away at all. But sometimes you do have the instance where you have interstate couples that you have two different states. So then it's like, okay, well, how do we plan to get there if I don't know when you're going to go into labour? Or, I was planning on coming up next week, but you've already gone into labour and crap, now how am I going to get there? So we were very, very, very lucky that, they're only an hour and a half down the road, and they could get here when we needed them.
Amazing. Yeah. So did this first transfer work? First transfer, does it work on the first go?
It doesn't always work on the first go, and every woman is different. Every embryo is different. For us, it did take first try, which was amazing.
Wow. Did you test before the phone call, or did you wait for the phone call?
I did. No, absolutely. I was one that could not wait. I had boxes of pregnancy tests ready to go. I actually messaged Tisha because I said to her, no, I'm not going to test. We'll wait for the blood test and the phone call. And I texted her and I said, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty pregnant. Like, I know that you've not experienced these sensations or these hormones and these feelings, but I'm telling you, I am pregnant. And she's like, okay, well, if you think so, like, let's do a test. So I said, okay, cool. So I went and peed on a stick and put it back in the packet. And so we FaceTimed and I said, okay, when we look at this, we're looking for 2 lines. And she's like, okay, cool. And so I showed it to her and instantly I knew it was positive. And she's like, hang on, I can't see it. Get closer. I was like, how can you not see the 2 lines? And so it was positive. Yeah. So I think I got my first positive about 8 or 9 days post-transfer.
Wow.
Well, that was when we tested. So it was great.
Wow. That's amazing. So like you, as you said, you felt pregnant. So now you know you're pregnant. Something
I've never known so early in my pregnancy.
It's amazing.
That was crazy. Yeah.
Something I wanted to touch on before we dive further into it is your kids at this point are, I'm not sure what age, but they're at an age where they can understand, pregnancy and babies and so on. Yeah. Did you tell them what you were doing?
Yes,
I mean, absolutely. I'm sure you would have, right?
Yeah. So we definitely talked with them even before we'd found Tisha and Ben and offered. We always talked to them and said, we don't want to have any more brothers or sisters for you guys. Are you okay with that? And they both were like, yeah, cool. Like, he's enough, she's enough, that's fine. And we always said, are you happy for mummy to carry a baby for someone else? And they always would say, yeah, that's fine. We did get the whole, but how does it work if you're going to have a baby, but it's not like our brother or sister? Like, what does that mean? So, you can do the whole sperm and egg to a 12-year-old, but you can't exactly do that with a 7-year-old. They kind of don't grasp the same concept or have that understanding of what sperm and egg is. So I had to kind of come up with a bit of an analogy around how do I explain this to make sense? And so I said, well, when mummy and daddy made you guys, we made an apple pie. So mummy made the pastry and daddy put the apple pie filling in it and we put it in the oven and we baked our apple pie and that was you. But we had to explain that Tisha doesn't have an oven to cook her apple pie. So Tisha got her patty case and Ben did the apple pie filling and they made the pie and then they're going to give it to mummy and I'm going to bake it in my oven and then give the apple pie back when it's done. And he goes, so it's not our apple pie to eat. And I'm like, no. Yeah, so have a
Wow.
baby, make an apple pie. Same, right?
I love the analogy. It makes
Yeah,
sense. For a 7-year-old,
it
definitely, it
does.
would make sense. That's a
Yeah,
really good one. I love the way you put it.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah. He loved it too. He was like, "How's the apple pie baking, Mum?" I'm like, "It's doing good." Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
So from the get-go, because you said you were talking about birth before, you even went through surrogacy, you even, obviously implanted the embryo, had you decided beforehand what model of care you would go through if you got pregnant?
Absolutely. Yeah. So since before becoming a surrogate, I became a doula. I trained and had been a doula for a few years.
Yeah,
I definitely became a lot more versed in the world of birth
yeah.
and preparation and choices. And I was definitely thinking, I would go the private obstetrician, private hospital choice that I'd had with my other two. That was great. I
Mhm,
loved it. But it was always the COVID restrictions that I was
mhm,
worried about. That if we went into lockdown and I had to choose
mhm.
who was coming with me, I didn't want anyone to miss out. Like this, I
Yeah.
needed my husband to be there,
Mm,
but also Tish and Ben needed to be there for their baby. Like they needed
mhm.
to be there. So I'd been working in the birth world, met quite a few private midwives and doulas and all of that. And it then just became abundantly clear that I wanted to have a private midwife and do a home birth. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so, as you said, Tisha and Ben were 100% on board with that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like they accepted that that was what I wanted. They definitely had reservations and fears around the situation, but I feel that they had trust in me as the woman carrying their baby, but also they're trusting me as a doula to know
Mhm.
that I know what I've researched, I understand the risks, and I'm preparing myself with the right team around me that I needed
Yeah.
that support from.
So I'm going to guess that Tisha and Ben's first daughter wasn't born via a home birth. Is that right?
Definitely not.
Mhm.
No. So Tisha's lovely sister carried their first daughter, Indy,
Oh,
and that it was always a planned cesarean because of age and all of that. But it actually ended up being an emergency cesarean where
oh,
she was under a general anesthetic. So Tish and Ben
wow.
actually weren't able to be in the room or witness anything. And yeah, the first time they got to meet Indy, their daughter, was when she was in special care nursery. So
Wow.
yeah, it wasn't definitely the welcome to motherhood or parenthood that you'd expect or desire. Yeah.
Wow. So I guess that helps me to understand the reservation they have, just like, I guess
Yeah.
when you're not familiar with a home birth, and or you're not working in this birthing world, it can feel a bit maybe daunting, new. It's, something you don't know about or you've never heard of before. So
Yeah.
right. But you had did you have any fears around this birth? I mean, you had two vaginal birth.
Hmm.
You wanted the epidural the first time, you asked for it the second time and you got it. Did you have any fears around this birth?
No, I
Wow.
had absolutely none. None whatsoever.
That's amazing.
Probably my biggest fear was, what do I do if I have to transfer? Like,
Mhm.
how is that going to work with so many people that are
Yeah.
involved?
So you're having a home birth. This might
Yep.
be a really stupid question. Which
Yep.
home are you birthing at?
My home. So we
Okay.
birthed at our home. Yes.
Yeah, I thought that, but I wasn't sure, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, how did the pregnancy unfold? Was it really different to, obviously, you had a boy, you had a
Hmm.
girl.
Hmm.
Was it really different this time around?
Yes. Yeah,
Wow.
definitely different. So this time around, I was doing completely different work. So when I was pregnant with my two children, I was working in an office. I was sitting
Mm-hmm.
all day. I was barely active at the best
Mm-hmm.
of times. This time around, I was super duper active. I was constantly on my feet,
Yeah.
standing at work. I'm a swim school teacher as well. So
Right.
I was constantly in the pool and utilizing all of that range of motion that I could do freely in the water to aid, baby's position
Mm-hmm.
and my mobility, which was amazing. But just the feeling of it was completely different. And I instantly said, I reckon this is a boy. Like, I feel like this is a
Right.
boy. It's the same symptoms, feelings that I've had when I was pregnant with Bradley. And
Mhm.
I was adamant that it was going to be a boy. It
Right.
was not.
Oh, that's funny. That
It
was
was not.
going. I
It
was
was a
going to
girl.
ask.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's so
Yeah.
funny. So, had you found out for Rachel and Bradley's pregnancy their sex or not?
Yes. Yeah. We found out with both
Nice.
of them. Yeah.
And so, did you find out for this pregnancy?
Yes, so Tisha and Ben wanted to find out. She
Okay.
likes to be prepared and
Yep.
organised.
Mhm.
So we found out the gender, and we did want to do a little gender reveal, but
Yeah.
I was unfortunately working the weekend that they
Oh.
planned to do it. So
Yep.
I took a quick 10-minute break in the office, and we did a Zoom call, and they all opened up all the cupcakes, and yeah, we found out it was another
Oh.
girl.
No, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. And so, how was it to have a pregnancy with essentially four people involved? Like, what was it like?
It didn't really feel different. Like, I didn't feel like I was consistently being watched or
Mhm.
asked, like, how are you feeling? Do you need
Yeah.
anything? Yeah, it didn't really feel different, which was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good because, well, I'm asking. It's maybe I'm asking stupid questions. I'm not sure, but I'm genuinely interested in how, obviously pregnancy being a really, a really great time, to bond with your husband and to bond with your children. But then now
Yeah.
you've got another two, adults involved and Indy as well, Tisha and
Yeah.
Ben's daughter involved too. So
Yeah.
it's like it's a big group, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's kind of just one big happy community and,
Yeah.
one big happy family type thing. It really didn't feel different as such. The only thing that was really different, and, my husband and I had way too much fun with this particular thing, was people saying, "Oh my gosh, you're having another baby." And you're like, "Yeah, but it's not Tim's."
Oh,
Or,
I
"Oh,
love
but it's not mine." And, yeah, we had a bit of fun with that one. So,
But what was people's
or,
reaction?
my,
So you'd have people like jaw dropping. You'd have people going,
yeah.
"Is she
Yeah.
joking?"
Yeah, quite literally. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was quite funny. We had air conditioning put in just before Christmas in the
Yeah.
lead up for the birth, and the aircon guy, he's just like, "Oh man, I've got an 8-week-old at home. I'm barely sleeping." And here I am at what was I, 32 weeks pregnant with this, ginormous belly. And my husband just goes, "Oh man, never having any more kids. Like, I'm so done." And I could sort of see him looking at me going, I'm surely she's pregnant. Like, you surely. And so he kind of pried a little bit, and Tim goes, "Oh, no, no, it's not mine." And he kind of went, "And you're okay with it?" And he goes, "It's not hers either." So, and it kind of made the topic really light and easy to talk about. I am very open and,
Yeah.
talk to me about surrogacy any day of the week. But some of the time, if I was really serious and was like, "Oh, I'm actually carrying a baby for someone else, I'm a surrogate," they're like, oh, okay. And it was really hard to sort of have another conversation with them. Whereas if I made a bit of a joke about it and,
Mhm.
got them a bit more relaxed, they were like, "Oh, wow. So what do you mean? Tell me more." And so it was actually a really good way to start conversation about surrogacy.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it would have been quite an interesting conversation for the average person because I hadn't heard too much about surrogacy myself, let alone seeing someone. And obviously, if I see someone pregnant, well, I might wrongly assume that it's their baby and they're
Yeah.
caring for themselves. And yeah, that would, you jokingly saying it's not yours or it's not Tim's is like,
Yeah.
that's just epic.
Yeah. 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 We definitely had fun.
Wow, that's epic. And can we do a little diversion
Sure.
onto mentally
Mm.
how obviously when you're pregnant and it's your child and it's Tim's child that you attach to this baby, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, is the attachment different? Are you attaching to this baby emotionally?
Oh, definitely. And I think if you don't connect with a child that you've grown in your
Mm-hmm.
womb, I think there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I don't feel like I have a connection with her like I do my own children, but definitely there's a special bond that I feel and that I felt while I was pregnant. But it was different. Yeah, definitely different to being pregnant with my own children.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And was like, when your baby's kicking, you're like, oh, Tim, feel the baby. Do you do the same with Sorrow Baby?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
definitely. And even more so with the kids. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's kicking, quick, come feel it." And
Oh,
yeah, they loved feeling that and experiencing that as well, which was really special.
oh wow. That's amazing. What was that conversation like with your private midwife when you found her to explain that, like, you're obviously giving birth, but the intended parents will also be here for, I'm guessing, most of the appointments and obviously the birth.
Yeah. So I actually touched base with her even before we'd gotten pregnant, and I was like,
Right.
"Hey, this is what I'm going to do. Would you support me?" And she was like, "Yes." I kind of said, "Okay, well, I'll let you know when sort of the planned
Mhm.
transfer day is and what the expected due date is. And we'll just sort of play it month by month if they don't work." And she was like, "Yep, sure, no problems." And she's like, "Yep, I've just kind of got a temporary booking for you for month to month from this date." And I, yeah, texted her and said, "Yep, it worked. This is when I'm due." And she goes, "Done."
You would have been one of the first women to get on her books,
Yep,
because obviously when you do
yep,
IVF or any, like assisted reproduction, it's like you just know potential, well, when, conception is, obviously. And so therefore you pretty
yep,
much know your due date, like, at this point.
exactly. Yep, yep,
That's epic. Wow.
yep.
That's absolutely epic. Did you feel good in this pregnancy? You said you were moving a lot, you were active. Did you feel good?
I did feel good. I had morning sickness for all three pregnancies, but yeah, other than that, I felt good. Definitely more tired given
Yeah.
the older age, but yeah, generally I felt really good, really healthy, felt really good mentally. Yeah, it was good.
Wow, amazing. And so, well, I guess take us through the big day. How did labor start?
Oh dear. So, oh gosh. So I'd been having chiropractic care with a local chiropractor. And yeah, so I'd seen her and she kind of said, "Oh, everything's looking really, really good. Baby's really head down and
Mhm.
nudged in there." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And it was Australia Day
Mhm.
last year, so like 2023. And we went to my mum and dad's and started just swam around the pool and chilled out and had dinner and came home and got into bed and slept the night. Got up at about 4 o'clock, that midnight, got to pee, get up, go and do that, get into bed. And then about 10 to 6, I thought, oh, I'm going to get up and pee again. This is ridiculous. So I kind of get out, do the shuffle to the bathroom and kind of feel a bit of trickle. And I'm like, maybe. Soon as I sit down on the toilet, gush, gush. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank goodness that was on the toilet and not on the carpet. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, so I kind of sat there. I don't know how long I sat there and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a baby. Oh my gosh, what do I do? So I had my little moment of panic, fear and, all of those irrational thoughts that go through your brain at like a split second. And then I was like, right, I'm having a baby. Let's do this.
Okay.
And so I got up and I opened the bathroom door and I woke my husband. I said, Tim, Tim. He goes, what? I said, oh, my waters have just released. And without a blink of the eye, he rolls over and he goes, I need to mow the lawns.
No, he
He
doesn't.
did. I kid you not. And I said,
That's
did you
random.
not hear what I just said? I said, my waters have released. Like, the baby is going to be born today. And he's like, yeah, that means everyone's coming over. I need to mow the lawns.
I know, that's epic. I love the
Yeah,
priorities. That's good.
yeah,
No, that's good.
yeah. So I was like, you do you. Yeah, that's fine. You do you, doll. No
No, don't
problem.
tell me he mowed the lawn.
Yeah,
No way. Was it a quick job?
no. I had actually had acupuncture booked for the day as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
rang up and I said, hey, look, my waters have gone. Do you still want me to come in? She's like, yeah, absolutely. If you're happy to come in, come on in. So Tim says to me, do you need me to drive you? And I'm like, no, got any contractions? So he was like, okay, cool, no problems. All right, cool. And I'm like, yeah, he's going to smash out the lawns, like, you know. So off I go to acupuncture at like 11 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter starts texting me at like 12:30-ish. Hi, Mum. Just checking in. Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, just about to leave soon. And she's like, okay, let me know when you're like 10 minutes away. And I'm like, okay. I pull into the driveway at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and he is running up and down the lawns, smashing it out. Oh my gosh. He is running up and down doing the lawns. And he's like,
Wow.
I thought I'd have it done before you got home. So yes, he did do the lawns. He did do the lawns and he was very happy and very pleased. So that was good.
Did it look good?
It did. Of course it did. Of course it
Of
did.
course, amazing. I'm so glad. This is amazing.
So then my daughter and I start setting up the birth pool and the birth space. Well, most of it had been done. So it was literally a case of move the couch, move the dining room table and blow up the birth pool. And that was it. That was all I was doing. All the fairy lights and affirmation cards had already been up for weeks. And
and you've obviously at this point let Tisha and Ben know, right?
oh yeah, sorry. Whoops.
Yeah, of course.
Forgot.
Yeah, and maybe they've done their lawn as well.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we FaceTimed them about 8:30 in the morning, which of course at that point we weren't really FaceTiming. So of course I think she knew that something was up because we were FaceTiming incredibly early in the morning. So we said, yep, start making your way up. Don't rush. That's fine. And so it was a really special time to set up the birth space with Rachel. And, you know, she was like, oh, Mum, do you want the fairy lights like this in the pool? And, you know, is that okay like this? And, you know, she was just, it was so lovely to have her there to help set up everything. And then our best friend came and got the kids for the afternoon. And so she took them back to their place and looked after them for the rest of the day, which was really lovely. Yeah. So I think my first sort of real surge hit at about 3 o'clock, about 10 past 3 in the afternoon. So I said to him, I said, right, put my TENS machine on and we'll go from there. So did that. And he goes, all right, come on out the front. Let's go walk on the grass and, you know,
you might as well
feel the freshly mown grass under my feet. So we did, but it was a stinking hot day. It was the middle of January and it was just so hot. And I swear that is what just kick-started labour, as well as the acupuncture, of course, straight into 5-minute surges. And they were intense. So I was just like, I can't do this. I need to go back inside. I need to just do something else. So back inside, leaning over the birth ball, kneeling, just with the TENS and a birth comb, headphones on, listening to affirmations and all of that. So Tim starts texting, you know, the midwife and the doula and the photographer to kind of say, yep, it's all kicking in, start making your way over. So I think when we did that, that was about 3:45 in the afternoon. And I think by the time they'd all left and started making their way here, it was about 4:45 before anyone arrived at the house. So the midwives arrived, the doula arrives, Tish and Ben arrived, the photographer arrives. And let's just say it wasn't the lead up to active birth that I anticipated giving Tisha and Ben. They walked into full on active labour. Full on 3-minute surges of vocalizing and it was on.
Wow. Sorry, little diversion. Had you discussed with Ben and Tisha, given that you were going to have a home birth, had you discussed what it could look like? Because you obviously knew how your body labored and you knew you had experienced two birth and they hadn't seen Indy's birth, so maybe they didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. There was lots of conversations around what it's going to look like, what it sounds like. Definitely lots of videos were watched of labouring women, which was really, really good. So they were prepared, but I think when you're walking in to something like that, it kind of takes you back a bit. when you're not expecting it. The
So were
last sort of
they?
conversation we had was, don't rush, nothing really much is happening,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
walking in the door to me roaring, like an animal.
Wow. Were they going to be a support person for you, or what was going to be their role in that room? Obviously, I know it's their baby being
Yeah.
born, but were they going to have an active role, I guess?
Yeah, so Tisha always said that she wanted to be like my doula. So
Yeah.
she was very nervous and unsure about how that would unfold, how she
Mm-hmm.
would cope
Yeah.
in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that was why I also had a doula, to sort of make sure that she was okay, and that, she had someone to kind of go, oh, am I doing the right thing? Or,
Mm-hmm.
I feel very out of touch here. Like, can you give me some help? So
Yeah.
she didn't leave my side at all. From the moment she walked in the door to the moment she picked up her daughter, she didn't leave my side, which was amazing.
Wow. And so what was Ben's role in this space?
He he his role was to make sure that Tisha eats. So she's a diabetic, so making sure that
Oh,
she's
yes.
eating and drinking, and that she's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But he was kind of like, I don't really think I need a role, because I don't know if I'll be able to perform that role.
Okay.
So he was a bit unsure in that whole sense as well. So yeah, like he wanted to be there, and
Yeah.
but yeah, you could just tell he was very uneasy and not sure.
Oh, look, I can only understand. It's like it's probably like, oh, I don't know, like yeah, I'll
Yeah,
just be there. Yeah, no,
yeah,
and as you said, it's hard to imagine when you don't really know what you're walking in. Again,
yeah,
abstract. It's like I don't know. I'll see on the day what it feels
yeah.
like, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there was lots of, oh, it'll be, cool, calm, collected, and we'll have this nice, gentle lead up to active birth, and you'll see things change, and all of this. Yeah, there was no change. It was just, yeah, they just walked in, and it was on.
Wow. So they walk in, and
Yep,
you're just active
I'm.
labor. You're
Yep,
in it.
I'm in it. I'm in it like Flynn, and Tim's there, the midwife's there,
Yep.
and the birth pool's ready to go. And
Amazing.
yeah, she just walks in and, just puts a hand on my back, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Mum's here. It's all good.
Oh,
Like, yep,
nice.
we're good. We're good to go now. Like, yep, cool. Let's get this baby out. A few times, my midwife, Chantel, who is amazing, by the way, she's amazing and lovely and just beautiful. She would say to me, oh, Katherine, do you want to hop in the birth pool? And I'm like thinking to myself, why is she asking me if we want to hop in the birth pool? Like, we never offer, like, we don't offer that information to women. Like, we wait for them to ask if they
Mhm.
want to get in. Like, we don't go, hey, do you want to get in the birth pool? And I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, cool, no problem. So I keep doing the thing. And she's like, Katherine, are you sure you don't want to get in the birth pool? And I'm like, this is all in my head. And I'm going, I am surely not that far along. Like,
Mhm.
surely not. I can't be. Why is she
Mhm.
offering? I'm like, no. So a few more surges happen, and she comes over and she goes, Katherine, unless you want to birth this baby on the floor, you need to get in the birth pool. And I went, oh, okay. So it was take the top off, had my bikini top on, and then it was take the TENS machine off. And just instantly out of my mouth, I said, sorry, Ben, one last time, and just took my pants off, and like literally just like hurtled into this birth pool. And yeah, everyone was just like, oh God, here we go. This is like, sorry, Ben, one last time. Why not? Off go the pants.
Wow. So you got
Yeah.
in the pool. So
Yeah.
you didn't feel like you were that far along at this
No.
point, but you
No.
were.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely wasn't
Wow.
feeling anything like
Oh,
pushing a baby out anytime soon. It just was like, really? Are you sure?
wow.
Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, that was pretty amazing. So I think I got in the birth pool at about 5:35 in the afternoon,
Hmm.
and so did a few surges, and then did some lunges, alternating legs to sort of help baby's head wiggle down, and
Hmm.
then the pressure hit, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is the need to poop pressure. I got it. Got it now.
Good. Third time, yeah. Good,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
it.
I know this one. This is good. And yeah, so started feeling that, and it was just intense. It was intense. It wasn't, I wouldn't say painful, but it was intense. And, at one point, midwife Chantel goes, "Oh, we can see the top of her head." And of course, I put my hand down and I'm like, "But I can't feel it. How can you see it?" And she's like, "Oh, goes back in, it comes back out, it goes back in." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep, cool, no problems." And so, yeah, so continued to, bear down and breathe baby down, and, eventually birthed her head. And the position I was in was on my knees, but I was leaning over the birth pool. And so I had Tisha on one side. And every so often I would have Tim in my ear, and later found out that when he wasn't with me, he was washing the dishes in the kitchen because that was his coping
No.
mechanism.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a few photos that the photographer got of, us doing our thing in the birth pool and Tim's over in the kitchen washing the dishes.
It is documented that he was doing dishes in the midst
Absolutely.
of labor. Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, of
What a
course, if
man
I
you've got.
needed, a bit of a stern talking to, I'd be like, "Tim." And the next minute, he'd appear at my ear and, tell me what I needed to hear. And yeah, then we continued on, and yeah, birthed out her head, and it was a big head. She still has a big head. But yeah, like, it was just like, yeah, she's just a big-headed girl, and she's
Yep.
gorgeous.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I distinctly, like, she was just moving so much,
Mhm.
getting into the right position, and, turning herself, and, just making it optimal for her to get out of me. And I just remember telling her, like, "Stop moving, baby, stop moving." And, "She's kicking me." And, and the midwife saying, "That's fine. She's getting into the right position and everything is fine and normal." And yeah, it's good. She's doing the work that she needs to do in order to get out. And yeah, in the next contraction, she was born, and yeah, came up between my legs and pulled her straight up onto my chest, looked at Tisha and went, "Oh my gosh, I did it." And she was like, "You just birthed the baby." And it was
Wow.
just ecstatic. Like, just, I think I was just in shock that I'd done it. I think they were in shock that I'd done it and that she was finally here. And yeah, it took us all a little moment to actually go, oh, okay, well, we better have a look at her and, see what she looks like, type thing. And yeah, so we took a few moments of sort of just taking all of her in and doing all of that. And she did take a little bit to respond. So lots of stimulus to her feet and her hands and giving her some rubs and stuff. But she did need a little bit of oxygen just from the midwife, just a few
Mhm.
puffs. Yeah, she snuggled up for skin to skin in the birth pool.
Wow. Did
Yeah.
she, very stupid question again, did she do skin to skin on you or on Tisha?
Yeah, so she actually did it on both. So she did skin to skin
Right.
with me. So she was born at 6:02 in the afternoon. So
Yep.
about 3 hours of labour to birth her.
Well,
Um,
Catherine, that's
yeah,
intense.
it was very intense, very,
It
very
sounds like it
intense.
was.
Yeah, but yeah, so we did skin to skin in the pool for, if I say, about an hour, and we were mainly waiting for the placenta to sort of see
Yep.
if it was going to come out, and then we started, getting a little bit cool. So we said, okay, we'll get out. So we got out and jumped on a mattress on the floor and continued skin to skin there. Placenta was still taking its time. So
Mhm.
my midwife gave me some placenta release tincture,
Mhm.
and we popped Callie onto feed. So she latched on and immediately fed
Oh.
like an absolute champ straight away. And within about 10 minutes, this placenta came out, and it was huge.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, gosh, it was so big. Like, the midwife was like, "Oh, I had to work for that one. Like, that was huge."
Wow. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And like, what, I think the cord was like over a meter long when we measured it. Everything was just big about this baby.
Was Kelly big as well?
She was big.
Wow.
Yeah. So so
Well,
we had skin to skin for about 2 hours, and she fed for that 2 hours.
nice.
Um, and then I said, okay, Dad, I think it's time to cut the cord and, do all of that. So Ben tied off the cord and cut it. And then we popped her on the scales, and Chantel goes, oh, that's 3.9 kilos on the dot. And I was like, pardon? Can you weigh her again? And she's like, well, no, she's 3.9 kilos. I'm like, all right, who's touching the scales? Because she was so compact, and holding her, she was just so compact and so tiny. But then you laid her out on these scales and she was huge. For me, she was huge. I know she's not a big baby, but for me, that was huge. And yeah, so they were like, no, she's 3.9 kilos. And Tish and Ben were actually taken aback because when Indy was born, she was 2.7 kilos. So like a
Wow.
whole 1.2 kilos heavier than what her big sister is.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really insane.
she's a chunky little girl. She's a chunky girl. Yeah, so we did lots of like did all the newborn checks and did all of that, and so we're all kind of like looking at her laying on the floor, and everyone kind of goes, "What now?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, Tisha, pick up your baby. Like she's yours. Like pick her up." And then what the second midwife in the background goes, skin to skin, like this. And without like a question, she just takes off her top and just picks up her baby. And yeah, it's just amazing.
How long did Tisha and Ben wait between Indy and Kelly? Like, how long was the wait between their two girls?
Yeah, so they are 5 years as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Right.
they're 4 days apart, their birthdays.
Right.
Yeah,
4 days.
4 days apart. Yeah. I tried really hard to keep them apart, but unfortunately,
4 days. So January is a busy month for them then.
yes, January is a very busy month for them. Yes,
Wow. That's amazing. So how did you feel afterwards? Like, did you feel
amazing.
well after this,
Yeah,
birth?
yeah, definitely. Definitely felt way different than with my two. Yeah, just felt completely different. Yeah,
And so you said that Callie fed when
yeah,
she was born and she fed for 2 hours.
yeah.
Was the intention to continue with breast milk, whether it's expressing or well, I'm guessing you may or may not be able to feed, physically.
Yeah.
What was the intent there, or was it just, formula to make it, I guess, easier for you?
Yeah, so that's also something that comes up in all your pre-surrogacy
Yep.
counselling and all of that. So we had agreed in the lead up to the birth was that for my recovery and for my hormonal balancing post birth that I would like to breastfeed Callie, at
Hmm.
least for the week that they've decided to stay up in Sydney. So they stayed in a hotel nearby, and they visited every day. So while they
Nice.
were with us, I was able to direct feed Callie for those 5, 6 days that they were here. And then when I
Wow.
wasn't with Callie, I was expressing and
Yeah,
pumping.
that's amazing. How did you find that, like having this direct breastfeed with her and then pumping for her?
Um, it was interesting. Like I didn't like feeding her was obviously amazing, and so such a cherished moment that I
Yeah.
will always have. But even when they were leaving and I wasn't going to see her until the next day, I never had that sense of where's the baby? I need to feed the baby. That sort of survival instinct of a mother. I never had that, which I was very worried about. But yeah, I would just pump and bag it up and put it in the freezer, and that's where it stayed. So they chose to do formula feeding. And then when I was with them, I was able to feed Callie that week. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow, amazing. You told me that you continued to express, is that
I
right?
did. Yeah, yeah. So it was something that I was like, yes, I would like to express and donate my breast milk.
Mm.
If it works, great. If it doesn't, then that's fine. Like it's
Mhm.
not for everybody. And if it all gets too much,
Yeah.
then it all gets too much. So I set myself up, with a schedule, just every 4 hours that I'd get up and I'd pump and bag it up, and that's what I do. And then eventually that 4 hours went from, to 5 hours, and then to every 6 hours, and it just kind of kept going. But every time I would drop the time frame or increase the amount of time between pumps, I would expect my milk supply to drop, but it never did. And it just kind of stayed the same consistently for 6 months.
Oh.
And so, of course, the intrigue of what my body's amazing capabilities of producing breast milk is, I created the Excel spreadsheet so that every day I would mark how many liters I produced that day. And then, of course, it would tally up for the month, and then it would tally up for a grand total. And so I exclusively breast pumped and donated breast milk for about 6 to 7 months, and it was a total of about 150 liters.
Catherine, you're just amazing. Like, your selflessness is beyond this world. You've I don't know what the right way of putting it is, but you grew a baby for someone else, for parents who couldn't have children naturally, and then you went on to, for 6 months, be attached to the pump, because I don't know many women that love pumping. I mean, there might be out there. I haven't met any just yet. I personally hated pumping.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine pumping every 4 hours when it's not even for my baby, and it's not even for a baby I know. You donated 150 liters of milk.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. There was a lot of Netflix that was watched.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Did you help? Was it just for the one baby, or did you help a few, I'm guessing?
So interestingly, on Facebook, there's a page called Human Milk for Human Babies, and it's Australia-wide. Well, there's lots of sort of sub-pages for like New South Wales and Melbourne, Victoria, blah, blah, blah. So I had 2 babies up in the mountains that came and collected some bags of milk. I then had a dad from, I can't remember where he was from, Gunnedah, that's right. They were in Gunnedah with a newborn baby. So the mum had done the rounds of collecting breast milk. And so he came down with a car full of eskies and was collecting breast milk to drive back to Gunnedah with breast milk for their baby. So there was that little baby out in Gunnedah. And then a very, very special little baby that I found on that Facebook page was born with quite a serious heart condition, and he was quite local to me. So I made contact and I said, hey, look, I would really like to donate to you and to your baby for whatever it lasts. And so I think he's gotten the majority of my breast milk. I've still got a few bags of milk in the freezer ready to go for him. And he's fattening up nicely, ready for his next surgery in a couple of months. So and it's been really special because I've kind of become a part of their family and a part of his life, which has been really, really lovely as well.
Oh wow, that's just amazing. The selflessness, Catherine. Wow. Thank you for what you did. It's like, I've got all the feels right now. It's amazing what you've done.
Yeah.
Wow. It's obviously not for everyone, obviously it's a very involved journey, anything could happen in birth, in pregnancy and so on, right? Yeah. But you are so passionate, and you just wanted to help another family to grow, and it's amazing.
The scary thing is that I would do it again in a heartbeat. Like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If Tish and Ben turned around and said, hey, do you think, I'd be like, yep, let's go. Yep, sure. Wow. No problems. Let's do it again. It was amazing. Like, and a lot of it also was setting myself up for my postpartum period and being prepared for all the emotions, all the, postnatal stuff that comes with that. And, I think we prepared for the worst, and we set ourselves up ready with different techniques and different services and stuff like that we could utilize in that moment. And we didn't need any of it, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really good point you're raising. How is a postpartum
Mm.
when you're recovering from birth and you're pumping, but you don't have a baby? Obviously, you don't have that sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
You still have a drop in hormones,
Mm.
but you physically there is less like fatiguing things to do, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I 100% agree with that. You definitely still have the drop in hormones, all of those postpartum hormones and emotions that you go through. So like, the day 5 blues and, the continuous crying for no reason. I had it all, trying to buy
Wow.
school shoes at the shops for my daughter and, I'm in tears going, I don't know what I'm doing. But, like
Yes.
I had it all,
Wow.
but it wasn't out of the ordinary. It
Yeah.
wasn't postnatal depression. It wasn't, whatever. It was all within the normal realm of postpartum healing, and definitely healing wise, not being sleep deprived, even though I was up pumping every 4 hours. As soon as I pumped and bagged it up and put it in the fridge, I was back in bed and like
Mhm.
asleep
Yeah.
until the alarm went off again. I didn't
Yep.
have to worry about settling a baby, changing a nappy, and doing all of these things. I was able to let my body heal, and definitely feel that that was a massive contributor.
And so, actually, I've got a question that just came up in my mind. So, because you had a private midwife, usually they come to your house for the first 6 weeks,
Yep,
and a lot of those visits are obviously around the baby
yes,
and, his or her health and so on.
yep,
But so, in your case, you've given birth, but,
mhm,
and it's important to obviously look after your health, not disregarding that, but there is obviously the babies with Tisha and Ben. So was Chantel still coming to see you and to look after your health? Is that what happened?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I still got 6 weeks worth of care from Chantel. So, of course, the first couple of days in that first week, and she did all of Callie's newborn checks and, all of that stuff prior to them going back home. And then every time I would catch up with Chantel over the next couple of weeks, we would FaceTime Tisha and
Yeah,
get an update on Callie and, Tisha would make sure that she's had her weighed and measured so that she was
yeah,
able to sort of feed back that information for the midwife as well. And I believe that they also had some one-on-one time, like FaceTimes as well, or phone
yeah.
calls privately as well. So yeah,
Wow. Yeah, because that would be, that would obviously looked a little bit different, but that's
yeah,
really interesting, right? And
yeah,
good on Chantel because it's obviously like 2 moms that she's looking after, essentially, like one
yeah,
baby but 2 moms. So that's
absolutely.
double the workload almost, I want to
Yeah,
say,
definitely, definitely. Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible.
Mm.
And so what do you think, your future looks like? You said you would do it again. Would you do it again just for Tisha and Ben, or would you do it again for another couple, maybe? Or not?
I'd do it again for Tish and Ben in a heartbeat. Like that, absolutely, definitely. It's a long process
Yeah,
to
of course.
find intended parents and create that relationship and that
Yeah,
friendship and that bond, and then to go through the process of what is required of surrogacy. And then
yeah,
we were grateful that the first transfer worked. Some people go through three,
yeah,
4, 7, 8 transfers,
yeah,
and you kind of go, oh, 8 transfers, that's a lot. Yeah, that's 8 months of time that you're spending at a clinic day in, day out, having blood tests and ultrasounds and peeing on sticks, and then only to get your cycle the next week type thing. Like that's rough.
yeah. Of course, the emotional journey of going through like any type of assisted reproduction is
Mm,
huge, right? The mental
yeah,
toll it takes on you, on your relationship, let alone when it's like you obviously as a surrogate, you really want, this transfer to be, to be the one to be working. And then it's like, it's, I guess, 4 people that get disappointed if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't take, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and as you said, it's a hugely long process because you have to find the parents, build this relationship, really, really get to know them and make sure they're the one. And then obviously from that point, doesn't just stop there, right? It's like legal and counseling, and there's just a lot of process before you even get to embryo transfer. So
Yeah,
yeah, no, totally get that.
absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, last question. How did your children, I guess, reflect on this journey that, you've been on, and they've been on, because they've been involved in, this journey, I'm sure. In a sense, you said Rachel was setting up the pool with you, so obviously she was involved.
Yeah. Yeah, look, they weren't there for the birth, so I made that a conscious decision not to have them there for the birth. I think it would have been different if it was a brother or a sister being born, but they've been very, very good. They've not sort of had any sort of big emotions or big negative emotions around, mummy's had the baby and now the baby's gone. We still see them, we still get photos, and yeah, they've not sort of had a negative experience around the whole surrogacy scenario. So I think they've both fared pretty well. Yeah, I think they've fared pretty well from it, which is good.
It's amazing the education you've given them, like without trying, obviously, of just opening up the opportunities and the options out there in
Mm,
terms of like teaching them that surrogacy exists and what it is,
yeah,
and teaching them that, well, you can have a baby at home, like just those things that you don't really get taught unless like it's happening in your family, if that makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. And, ever since doing the surrogacy, it's become, evident in their minds that, it's not just easy for someone to have a baby. Sometimes they
Hmm.
do need a little bit of help and, that type of stuff. So they understand that it's not just a simple process, that,
Yeah.
some people do need help and that's okay. And whether that's IVF or, fertility treatments and sometimes it could be needing someone to have a baby for them. So that's opened their minds at
Mm.
a young age, which has been really good in a positive way. But then also me being a doula and coming home and they'll say, "Oh, mummy, did she have the baby?" And, and sort of talking through different birth situations that I'm in is
Hmm.
opening their minds up also to the birth world as
Yeah.
well in a positive way. I was chatting with my son only a couple of weeks ago and he goes, "But when's she going to have the baby, mum?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, Tal." And he goes, "See, they just need to leave them alone." I said, yeah, they do. Just leave them alone and it will happen.
Bradley, you've got it.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah,
So
just
good.
leave them alone. Yeah.
Wow, but see this type of comment that your son has at the age of 9,
Yeah.
he's going to grow with that mind. So if he goes on to have children of his own,
Yeah.
then he's probably going to like either be able to help, his partner to advocate, and
Mm.
or say, no, we don't need to intervene, or or actually, you know what, let's not even go through the system, let's have a home birth like mom did,
Yeah.
and let's have an undisturbed, spontaneous labor.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing, like just this comment really goes to show that, yeah, you've given them sexual education
Mm.
outside of this is how babies are made. You've given them options for even when they decide to have children of their own. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. Are you proud of yourself?
I don't like saying it, but yes, I am.
Yes, you should be. You should be.
Secretly, I'm pretty proud of myself.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
I set myself a task and I achieved it. And yeah, I'm pretty dang proud of myself.
To-do list. Have a baby for someone else. Tick. Yes. Good.
Don't know what else
Yeah.
I can add to the list anymore. Like, it's getting pretty hard now.
Yeah, I don't know what's above having, like, being a surrogate for intended parents. I could not even think of something funny to say right now. So, no, I think that's it, right? So,
Yeah.
thank you, Katherine. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for telling this incredible story of, your own motherhood journey that then led you to meeting Tisha and Ben and having their baby and bringing Kelly into the world. That's absolutely amazing. I've loved every second of this. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to get notified of when a new episode comes out, please subscribe to this show on your podcast listening platform. Also, I would really appreciate it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcast or share this episode so that other moms can find it. If you would like to tell your own pregnancy, birth, or parenting story, please head to the show notes and you will find a form there to get in touch with me. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I will be with you again next week for a new episode.